The recent controversy around the Breadtube old guard not creating videos about the genocide in Gaza, seemingly primarily spearheaded by the channel Kavernacle, though quickly picked up upon by others, has gained a lot more traction and perceived legitimacy than what I unfortunately think the arguments are actually worth. The videos focus on a select few creators that are seen as representative of the failure of Breadtubers more broadly to talk about Gaza, and Kavernacle makes multiple appeals to the fact that these creators have some of the largest platforms on the left. However, this is really the reason that the creation of videos on the genocide by them is almost entirely redundant. Those subscribed to them are probably at least around 90% social democrats or further left, and it's highly unlikely they're unaware or undisturbed by the conflict. In fact, the degree to which speaking out about these things is effective is proportional to how much your audience is not already on board. This is why public figures with apolitical audiences who speak out make a difference, and a left-wing YouTuber preaching to the choir is far less consequential. Naturally, this principle applies even more so to those with a right-wing audience, such as a conservative cultural commentator like Theo Von.
It feels to me, I don't know if it feels to me like it's a genocide that's happening while we're alive here in front of our lives.
Apart from this, the broader impact of videos from these creators would at this point be absolutely subsumed by regular coverage from mainstream sources like MSNBC. And on October 9th of last year, even the New York Times went as far as publishing an op-ed written by a doctor who had worked in Gaza, describing things such as the daily and widespread shooting of children in the heart or head. This article predictably received a lot of backlash and incredulous replies, but this is to be expected when presenting this information to those who aren't already in agreement. Even aside from these creators' audiences' significant left-wing bent, they also heavily intersect with one another, given that they are all labeled as belonging to a Breadtube community to begin with, and Kavernacle was able to make a very successful video featuring all three revolving around the same topic. Despite the fact that there was extensive coverage of the events unfolding after October 7th, 2023 within the left YouTube sphere by channels like Sean and Some More News, and there has since been regular coverage by those such as Noah Sampson, the news show Democracy Now!, and many others, those with this criticism would like to see everyone make a Gaza video, essentially ignoring among left YouTubers the benefit of specialization, the fact that some may cover current events, others philosophy, others history, etc., and all at different frequencies. It's advantageous for creators to be able to split their efforts like this so as to not end up wastefully duplicating their efforts, and obstinately demanding that all of them produce a certain video would have a relatively tinier marginal impact for each new video created. By ignoring these factors of audience makeup and crossover on the impact of an action, I can really with equal validity demand not just one, but multiple videos from these creators.
I've had people, and I had another YouTuber recently in my comments saying, "Why have you stopped talking about Gaza?" Which was bizarre to me because I'd recently made 2 videos on it.
I could say, unless we get the monthly ContraPoints genocide update, she clearly doesn't care. Although this may seem more absurd than demanding a single video over a tweet, they are all equally negligible compared to the determining forces of international politics and the pre-existing movement. Due to the much greater knowledge among leftists and especially the general population of the genocide in Gaza than other current atrocities, if one really agrees with this criticism, they should be demanding on the same grounds coverage of the Rohingya genocide, Uyghur genocide, and every other active genocide, since that effort would go far further in spreading knowledge of an ongoing injustice than a Gaza video that reiterates what's been being said for almost 2 years to a knowing audience. Surprisingly, I didn't see others coming to this realization and voicing it, despite the understandable implication that this responsibility should apply to all conflicts, and not Gaza uniquely. Of course, we know these creators don't make these alternative videos, and that's because, besides the fact that it falls outside of their content specialization, these videos would not be able to single-handedly alter international politics. It should go without saying that this doesn't mean to ignore these ongoing atrocities, and I of course encourage you to learn more about them, but rather to recognize our current level of power and act accordingly. Much is the same for the genocide in Gaza, except that individuals are more likely to be aware of the situation, especially among leftists and left liberals, where awareness has been at its point of saturation for a while now, meaning that efforts against the genocide can't really increase any longer, simply by way of more leftists becoming aware, since any of them not living under a rock are already well aware. If one wants to end the genocide in Gaza, it is far more effective to organize with others or inform those who are unaware of what's taking place than to demand content creators create redundant PSAs. A final little addendum that's less intrinsically important, but I still want to add here, is that likely as a consequence of this reasoning and the willingness of Kavernacle and others to accept it without first seeking a more realistic explanation than the apathy of creators in question toward an ongoing genocide, ContraPoints clarified our positions on the ongoing conflict, and some are seeing it being structured around negative emotions, as ContraPoints caring more about her own feelings than the genocide or something along those lines. However, it really just seems like a framing device for communicating all of her thoughts, the content of which concerns the conflict and isn't self-centered. Her actions are necessarily going to be based on emotional states, which in turn are based on the present conditions, and the depth of her explanation necessitates their inclusion. Anyway, thank you for hearing my points, and if you think I'm wrong or otherwise, please let me know why in the comments.